Don't jump. The words burst out of David's mouth before he even realized he was shouting. His hands trembled as he held the small, warm fingers of his 7-year-old daughter, Aaliyah, who stood beside him, her wide eyes filled with confusion. It was supposed to be just another hard day in their lives. David was a struggling single dad, a man who worked 2 janitorial jobs just to keep the lights on. He had lost his wife years ago in a car accident, and since then, every ounce of love and energy he had was poured into his daughter. They were walking home across the bridge that evening because the bus fare he had wasn't enough for both of them. The city skyline glowed in the distance, but right there, in the middle of the bridge, stood a young woman, elegant, beautiful, but broken. Her hands gripped the railing, her eyes fixed on the icy river below. David could feel it. She wasn't just standing there. She was seconds away from letting go. "Daddy, what's that lady doing?" Little Aaliyah whispered, tugging his sleeve. David's heart pounded. He had seen despair before. He had felt it in his own darkest moments when he thought he couldn't go on. But something inside him knew. If he walked away now, he'd regret it for the rest of his life. So he stepped forward, voice cracking but firm. "Please don't jump. Whatever you're going through, it's not the end. Someone out there still needs you. Someone out there still cares." The woman turned slowly, her tear-stained face catching the last rays of sunset. She was young, maybe late 20s. Her dress was expensive but wrinkled, her makeup smeared, her whole body trembling. For a long moment, she just stared at him, as if deciding whether a stranger's voice could really pull her back from the edge. And then she let go of the railing. But instead of falling, she collapsed into David's arms. Aaliyah gasped and hugged the woman's leg as David carefully helped her back onto the sidewalk. The stranger buried her face against his chest, sobbing uncontrollably. David didn't know who she was. He didn't know why she was there. All he knew was this: tonight, he had saved a life. What he didn't know was that the woman he just saved wasn't just anyone. She was the CEO of the biggest company in America, and saving her would change his and his daughter's life forever. David guided the trembling woman away from the edge of the bridge and sat her gently on a bench. The city noises faded as his attention locked fully on her. Aaliyah, still clutching her father's hand, looked up with wide eyes. "Daddy, is she okay?" she whispered. David crouched down to meet his daughter's gaze. "She's going to be, baby. We just need to make sure she feels safe." Turning to the woman, he asked softly, "Can you tell me your name?" For a moment, there was only silence. Her lips quivered, her eyes darting between David and Aaliyah. Finally, in a voice so fragile it barely carried over the hum of traffic, she whispered, "Isabella." David nodded. "Okay, Isabella. I'm David. This is my daughter, Aaliyah. You're not alone tonight, all right?" Tears spilled from her eyes again. She tried to speak, but choked on her words. David pulled off his worn jacket and draped it over her shoulders. He didn't care that the fabric was old and faded. It was warm, and right now, that was what she needed most. Minutes passed, the kind that feel heavy with unspoken pain. Isabella finally muttered, "You don't understand. My whole life, it's falling apart. Everyone thinks I'm strong, but inside I'm drowning." David's chest tightened. He remembered nights when he sat in the dark, staring at bills he couldn't pay, wondering how he'd keep food on the table for Aaliyah. He understood more than she realized. "You don't have to carry everything by yourself," he said. "Sometimes, letting someone catch you is the bravest thing you can do." Isabella stared at him, stunned. No one had ever spoken to her like that. Not board members, not investors, not the people who claimed to care about her. Just a tired janitor and his little girl. And yet, his words hit deeper than anything she'd ever heard. That night, David walked Isabella to a safe place, a small diner that stayed open late. They shared coffee and fries. Isabella hardly ate, but the warmth of being with strangers who expected nothing began to thaw her heart. Before leaving, she whispered, "Thank you, David. Thank you, Aaliyah. You saved me." David smiled gently. "We just did what anyone would have done." But Isabella knew no one else had stopped. Dozens of people walked past her on that bridge. Only this man and his daughter cared enough to act. As David and Aaliyah left, Isabella watched them disappear into the night. She felt something stir in her heart, something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. The next morning, David woke up before sunrise to head to his job. His apartment was small, the kind of place where the ceiling fan creaked louder than the alarm clock, but it was home. Aaliyah stirred awake and hugged him before he left, whispering, "Daddy, will we see the lady again?" David smiled faintly. "I don't know, baby, but I hope she's okay." At work, David scrubbed floors, emptied trash bins, and fixed leaky faucets. His co-workers rarely noticed him. To them, he was just the janitor. But across the city, Isabella sat in the penthouse office of one of the tallest skyscrapers, her eyes fixed on the skyline. She was the CEO of a billion-dollar company, a woman known for her icy determination, ruthless negotiations, and flawless public image. Yet no one in that tower knew she had been minutes away from ending her life the night before. As her assistant handed her a schedule, Isabella found herself distracted. Her mind replayed David's words. Sometimes, letting someone catch you is the bravest thing you can do. Something inside her shifted. She couldn't just forget him. So she didn't. She ordered her team to quietly find out who David was. Within hours, she had everything: his name, his address, his jobs. And when she read about his struggles as a single father, about the wife he'd lost, about the 2 jobs he juggled just to survive, her heart broke all over again. That evening, Isabella made a decision. She was going to see him. It was a Friday evening when David came home exhausted, his back aching, his hands rough from cleaning chemicals. He opened the apartment door, greeted by Aaliyah's laughter as she played with crayons. Then there was a knock. David frowned. Visitors were rare. He opened the door and froze. There stood Isabella, but not the broken woman from the bridge. Tonight, she was radiant. A tailored suit, flawless makeup, the aura of someone important. She looked like she belonged on magazine covers. David stammered, "Isabella, what are you doing here?" Aaliyah peeked around her father and squealed, "The lady from the bridge." Isabella smiled softly. "Hi, Aaliyah." She then looked at David, her eyes shimmering. "I didn't come here as the woman you met last night. I came here as who I really am. I need to tell you something." They invited her inside, and Isabella sat on the couch, nerves buzzing in her chest. Finally, she said it. "I'm the CEO of Hamilton Industries, one of the biggest companies in the country." David blinked in disbelief. "Wait, you're what?" She nodded, tears forming. "The truth is, I almost ended everything last night because I felt trapped by all of it. The power, the pressure, the loneliness. I thought I had everything, but I had nothing." David sat silently, processing. Isabella continued, "But you and your daughter, you reminded me what really matters. Compassion, humanity, family. You saved my life, David, and I don't want to walk away from that." Aaliyah, with the innocence only a child has, crawled onto Isabella's lap and whispered, "You can be part of our family if you want." Isabella gasped, hugging the little girl tightly. At that moment, David realized something. This wasn't just about saving her life. Their lives were about to intertwine in ways he never could have imagined. Over the following weeks, Isabella kept visiting. Sometimes she brought groceries, sometimes books for Aaliyah. Sometimes she simply sat and listened to David talk about his struggles. Slowly, walls came down. David discovered that behind Isabella's power was a woman who longed for connection. And Isabella discovered that behind David's struggles was a man of unshakable strength and kindness. One evening, as they all shared dinner together, Isabella took David's hand. "I want to offer you something," she said. "Not charity, not pity, a chance. Come work with me. I'll make sure you're in a position where your talents shine. You've given me life again, David. Let me give you and Aaliyah the life you deserve." David's throat tightened. For years, doors had slammed in his face. For years, he had been invisible. And now, the CEO of the biggest company in the country was holding out her hand. He looked at his daughter. She was smiling, her eyes full of hope. David finally nodded. "Okay, but only if it means I can keep being the father she needs. That's my most important job." Isabella smiled through tears. That's exactly why I need you." From that day forward, everything changed. David wasn't just a struggling janitor anymore. He became a leader in Isabella's company, known for his integrity and heart. Aaliyah finally had security, stability, and a future brighter than David ever dreamed of. And Isabella? She no longer felt alone. She found a family in the most unexpected place, a bridge on a cold night where despair almost won. But love, compassion, and courage won instead. And it all began with 3 words: don't jump,